Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's jump right in. Today, we're kicking off part 1 of a really incredible 10-part tutorial by Virtualization Options LLC. They're a tech research and advisory group out of Colorado, and they built this specifically for you, infrastructure and security architects. We know you already have IPv4 networking down to a science, but now you're facing this massive fundamental shift, migrating your organization from IPv4 to IPv6. The stakes are huge here. For today, we are going to focus entirely on Chapter 1, laying down that absolutely crucial groundwork before we get into the really deep weeds.
So here's what we're aiming to do right now. We need to establish the hard reality of why this transition is happening, and frankly, point out the immediate security blind spots you need to tackle in your environments today. Across this whole series, we're going to break down 11 distinct transition mechanisms using a strict stride security analysis. For the architects listening, you know exactly what that means. We'll rigorously evaluate spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege for every single protocol, straight from the core RFCs. But before we get to the advanced stuff later on, we've got to build the foundation.
Looking at our roadmap for this session, we'll quickly cover the transition imperative, map out 3 coexistence models, dive into the dual stack baseline, examine dual stack security risks, and finish up with your action plan.
Starting with Part 1, the transition imperative. Let's talk about why coexistence is, honestly, completely unavoidable at this point. Look, we have to start by validating this burning platform. IPv4 exhaustion. It is not some distant future threat. We are way past it. It's a concluded event. Just look at the timeline. The IANA free pool wasn't depleted recently. That happened back in early 2011. And by 2019, all 5 regional internet registries, RN, RAPE, AppNIC, the whole group, had completely exhausted their standard allocation pools. You literally cannot get new public IPv4 allocations through normal channels anymore. Meanwhile, IPv6 adoption is just exploding. By 2026, we're looking at around 45% of users reaching Google services over IPv6. Major ISPs are already running IPv6 primary networks today. The transition is happening right now.
But here's the catch. Despite all that massive global momentum, we can't just walk into the data center and flip the IPv4 switch off. Why? Because of legacy debt. You've got embedded industrial devices, old operational technology, industrial control systems, and a mountain of enterprise apps with deeply hard-coded IPv4 assumptions. They just can't be updated overnight. Prolonged coexistence of both protocols is an absolute reality. We are talking about a messy, overlapping time frame that will take decades to sort out, not just a couple of years.
Moving to Section 2, the 3 coexistence models. Let's map out this terrain. Depending on what kind of legacy debt your enterprise has, you don't really get to just pick your favorite model. You're probably going to see all 3 of these running side by side. First up is dual stack, which is exactly what it sounds like, running complete dual protocol stacks on the same interfaces. Then we have tunneling, where you encapsulate one protocol inside another to get across incompatible infrastructure. Think protocols like 6 and 4 or Teredo. And finally, there's translation, meaning complex stateful or stateless header conversion right at the network boundary, like NAT64. You really have to understand how each of these operates.
And here is the absolute bottom line for you as security architects. Every single transition mechanism introduces its own unique attack surface. And trust me, these aren't just theoretical whiteboard risks. Threat actors are actively exploiting them as we speak. Tunnels bypass your perimeter edge controls. Translators break end-to-end integrity. And dual stack, it literally doubles your policy surface area overnight.
Which brings us to Section 3, the dual stack baseline, or as I like to call it, the illusion of simplicity. You know, conceptually, dual stack feels like the simplest way to handle this, right? But it masks a really heavy administrative burden. In this model, every single node is running complete, independent IPv4 and IPv6 stacks at the same time. Now, how does it choose? It's not magic. It's all driven by DNS. Modern operating systems prefer AAA records over standard A records. And to make sure your end users don't notice a massive lag if the IPv6 path drops, mechanisms like happy eyeballs kick in to provide a super fast, nearly invisible fallback to IPv4. The packets then just travel end-to-end without any translation.
Let's weigh the pros and cons here, because the reality of this burden is pretty stark. On the plus side, there's 0 translation overhead, and you get to perfectly preserve your end-to-end network semantics. Plus, you can deploy it incrementally across a campus, which is nice. But the downsides? They're intense. You are essentially doubling your entire infrastructure footprint. Double the IPAM complexity, double the routing table sizes in memory, double the stress on your DHCP infrastructure, and the real kicker? It doesn't even solve IPv4 address exhaustion because every single host still natively consumes an IPv4 address anyway.
All right, on to Section 4, dual stack security risks. Let's dig into that attack surface. This first one is huge, the firewall rule gap. Honestly, this is probably the single most common dual stack mistake we see in enterprises today. Network teams will spend hours writing these meticulously detailed IP tables rules for IPv4, and then they completely forget or just fail to populate IP6 tables. It's a totally separate rule set. So what happens? You end up with a flawlessly locked down IPv4 front door right next to a completely unmonitored, default open IP6 backdoor.
Next up, the scanner blind spot. Think about your expensive enterprise security scanners. They're usually set up to target known IPv4 ranges because IT handed them a legacy IPv4 spreadsheet. Because of that simple administrative oversight, those scanners totally bypass services listening on IPv6. So, you might have a service that you think is perfectly hardened, patched, and safe against an IPv4 attack, but it's sitting there completely exposed, totally unpatched, and entirely invisible on its IPv6 path. Now, socket binding. This is where things get really wild. When an application binds to the IPv6 wildcard, it automatically starts listening on both IPv4 and IPv6 protocols at the same time. The way default operating systems like Linux, Windows, and macOS handle this creates a massive bypass mechanism without you doing a single thing. If you only put your security controls and host-based firewalls on the IPv4 side, an attacker can just waltz right past all your hard work by using the unmonitored IPv6 path. Plus, almost all modern OSs turn the IPv6 stack on by default, even if you never plan to use it. So what do we do about it? Section 5, the action plan. Let's look at immediate mitigations.
We need to act on this right now to close these operational gaps. Step 1, enforce rule set parity immediately. If you have an IPv4 permit or deny rule on a firewall, it must have an exact IPv6 equivalent. No exceptions. Step 2, update your tooling. Make sure IPv6 addresses are included in all your vulnerability scans. Step 3, audit your application's socket bindings for that wildcard so you actually know what's listening on your network. And Step 4, systematically go in and disable the IPv6 stack at the OS level on interfaces where you just don't need it yet. Hardening always means reducing the attack surface.
Also, and this is critical, you have to explicitly block deprecated tunnels. Attackers actively scan for open Chorito and 6-4 relays because they know security teams forget they exist. Shut down Protocol 41 at all your perimeter firewalls. Only let it through to specific documented tunnel brokers if you absolutely have to. Block UDP port 3544, both inbound and outbound, and block 2002/16 at your IPv6 perimeter. These old legacy tunnels just bypass your modern controls and offer zero operational benefit today. Just lock them down. Well, that wraps up Chapter 1's architectural and security baseline. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to take back to your teams today. Look closely at your environment and ask yourself, are we truly ready for the invisible traffic that might already be flowing through our perimeter? Is your network hosting unmonitored IPv6 traffic right now? It's a question every single security architect has to be able to answer. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and we will see you in part 2 of this series.